And, you know, with her getting to know my kids, you know, she got to kind of help guide me along the way. I mean, there were so many cool things that I've learned.
I went from a very rough type of life. I was homeless, and she was able to help me get into school, and I actually have enough credits to graduate with a business degree right now.
I think I really want to mention just that I'm grateful that I took advantage, because it's something that has put me in touch with my child, or closer to my child and her development.
I want other people and parents to know that the home visiting is not something that you should be afraid of. It's actually something that is needed.
You know, because she's not just here for her, she's here to help with all of it. She helped me create a safe space where I feel comfortable enough to ask for help.
Don't be afraid to take that step. Like, don't be afraid to get help. It's always okay to have extra support.
I would say, give it a try. You got nothing to lose. It's free. There's some perks, you know. They've got some great resources.
Personally, I think everybody could benefit from the home visiting programs.
We're going to call the General Government Committee meeting to order. I'm going to call on Michael Katz to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, clerk, could you conduct the roll call?
Chair Hashek.
Here.
Supervisor Mulhern.
Here.
All right, we're going to go to agenda item number 2A, discussion and possible action, including providing recommendations to staff and a referral to the Board of Supervisors, recommending approval of the County of Mendocino Cannabis Department monthly update for May 2023. All right, so we'll turn it over to John Burks.
Good morning, Chair, Supervisor Mulhern, CEO, County Council, and community members. We here, the Cannabis Department has presented its monthly report, and it is a bit longer than the last one that we had submitted, so I was wondering if you could advise, would you like a quick recap of what's contained in there, or do you have a different method? Do you want to dive right into some questions?
Yeah, let's just go to questions. I think we've had a chance to read it. I think it's very clear, and we really appreciate the information being provided. And so, you know, the correspondence we got, there was a couple questions about the LEAP funds. And if we could just jump into that, you know, questions about whether some of the budgets could be redirected to using the LEAP funds for, you know, the true-up cost and those fees. And so, you know, certainly, I guess the true-ups are due by May 31st, and that it would be very problematic, but if we could work with the auditor's office, you know, with extensions and some of those kind of issues, I just, is it a possibility in your point of view?
Well, I can tell you what my general plan is, and then maybe we could try to find that pathway. So right now, most of my efforts and the administrative efforts in the department have been on getting together the items for today and the board and some of the broader, you know, level items like the LJ grant. Once I got over this hurdle, it was my intention to finish the tax appeals, because we're about 60 to 70% of the way through those now as the administrative side of the department. Then next we were going to focus on the LEAP waivers associated with the taxes. So that's our general plan. I think it will take the better part of a week probably, in addition to the other administrative tasks that we have. Do I think it's possible? I certainly think so. It would just require a bit of strategy. And because I've been so focused on sort of these larger pressing items, I haven't done any investigative research to see what that pathway could look like. So I'd be happy to, you know, take any suggestions in terms of if you have a vision of what we could or couldn't do. I haven't reached out to the treasurer tax collector or our administrative staff to see, you know, how we could get those pieces together. But I suppose we could certainly try.
Yeah, and I think that one of the pieces would be if we can't get it by May 31st, is there a waiver that, you know, if people are committed to using that LEAP funding for that purpose, then would that be acceptable to the auditor, controller, or treasurer, tax collector, I guess. So yeah, those kind of issues.
Because, yeah, I think the missing component in that is if they were going to use some of the funds from their LEAP direct grants, that I had not considered, because our plan was just to process, you know, them as they've been presented. But in terms of any kind of modifications or amendments to those for quicker implementation, I think might be possible. I will say historically, because the way that we process them and there's a lot of departments involved, it's not very fast. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't try to improve that process, at least at the cannabis department level. So I think that will take some thought. And since time is obviously short, that's something that I can work on.
Yeah, I just see that as, you know, benefiting the county and getting those true ups paid, and then also benefiting the people, recipients.
Agreed. Yeah, I know. I think conceptually not a problem at all. It's just really the implementation that, you know, I would need to try to wrap my head around, which I'd be happy to do.
Yeah, Supervisor Mulhern?
Thank you. I'd like to just appreciate the staff of the Cannabis Department and both of you. I've gotten really a lot of good feedback from the industry, and I appreciate the work that's being done and the improvements that are being made. I think that's a really big deal for our community. The couple of questions I had on this month's report were about the referrals to other agencies, specifically the district attorney, and air quality, and how applicants move through the process while those are being referred to other agencies, if they're able to still continue. And then also about communicating the processing timeline. So all along this conversation, after we determined the new processing based on DCC licensing, Communication with applicants has been a challenge. The department has made great strides in communicating to the applicants specifically about when they can expect to receive renewals. So do we have an updated plan for the new processing timeline?
Elora Babini, Chief Planner with Mendocino County Cannabis Department. So currently with the referral process, since we have streamlining coming through, I know some of that affects the DA background checks. For the July expiration, I actually sent them all in bulk prior to, them being completed and reviewed because I knew that we had a shorter timeline and I didn't have an expected time of referral. So we've received half of the July referrals back as of Friday this last week. We're expected to have the rest back by the end of this week. There were only 47 applications in July that had to be sent for background check. Of that, there were 117 people that had to have their background checks, including employees. So we've received 60 people back as of last week. They actually have expedited these reviews, which is a lot quicker than anticipated, which is great. As to date, we do have the majority of Julys have been referred out. There are a few that we have had non-responsive from applicants for completing the application so that we can refer them out. I don't know how to incorporate, without having our Julys completed, I need to know what that timeline is looking like before I can publish something that says how long those referrals take. Because I need to have them back from air quality and Fish and Wildlife to know how long those referrals are going to come back so that I can anticipate how long future referrals will take. We have not received referrals back from the majority of our Fish and Wildlife referrals. From air quality, we've gotten some back. It really is a staffing issue, I think, countywide that we are dealing with that hinders the referral process.
Okay. Mr. Burks.
One of the things that, okay, sorry. One of the things that the Excella software program is going to do that's going to help our department hugely is it does all of the compartmentalized review so that at each step it's captured and it's going to track the time. So just for our own benefit and the benefit of the community and for the GGC and board, we've been doing our own time study to try to get ahead of that. But the good news is that once the Excella software comes online, and a lot of our applicants are familiar with it from the state because the state uses it, is it's really going to give us some quality data and reporting to answer those questions in a lot more detail. So we're still going to complete our July expiration time study of those so we have some awareness. It's actually already benefiting us with some information that we've included in this report, but something to look forward to for everybody is when that comes online, it's going to be a lot more detailed and real time.
Okay,
And
Ms. Babini.
Elora Babini, Mendocino County Cannabis Department. Also, the one benefit of Excella is the transparency because in your portal, you're able to see where you are in the process, what reviews have been completed, any comments that come back, any of your inspection report corrections that need to be made to have an approved pre-site inspection. And so the just transparency for the applicant is going to be really beneficial that I'm excited for because I actually think that it will increase the dialogue between applicants, but also free up some of the planner time that won't be needed to answer questions of where my application is, what the status is, because it'll all be visible through their portal.
And just a question for that, and I don't understand the technical parts of it, but will the portal information the information in the portal be transferable to Excella? Is that what's going to happen?
And I may have misspoke. So the portal is different. I'm talking about the Excella portal. So I'm calling it the Excella portal. So all of the information that came in through our previous review portals, all of the data that was collected in there, all of the forms and information will go into Excella.
Okay, that's the question, right. Okay, and then with the question about referrals to outside agencies, and such as air quality, if there is a delay on that, are we using the 30-day, if we don't hear back in 30 days, that's considered, you know, a non-response or pass on that? And I get, is that for a question for county council?
Mr. Chair, the department did ask my office to take a look at whether that would be consistent with the ordinance. That is a matter that we're reviewing. We don't have an answer on that just yet.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. And I'd just like to reiterate too that, you know, the responses I'm getting are very positive for the communication. When I visited the department a few weeks ago, that the morale was up. People were understanding what their jobs were and what they needed to do, and it really seemed like there was a good spirit or corps d'esprit there, right? That I appreciate going on for both of you. All right. Oh, did you?
On that, Chair Hashtag, I just wanted to comment that, you know, we have made offers and have 2 people joining us in supervisory management roles at the end of this month that we're very much looking forward to, for a senior planner and a senior program manager.
Okay, very good. All right. And just with the 4-leaf contract, we have 12 or 14 or something people working on that and they're teleworking, right?
Correct.
And so how's the feedback you're getting on that? Is it effective?
So, Elora Beanie, Mendocino County Cannabis Department. I do think it's very effective. I think that, you know, with having just an expanded staff, we're working on different kind of in the middle noticing when we send things to Fish and Wildlife. We created templates for our contract planners to send, you know, your project's been referred to Fish and Wildlife, or your project's been completed in-house and does not require a referral. And so we're working on incorporating those just so that we are noticing the applicants kind of where they're at in the process. I think that we've gotten great feedback. I think the majority of our applicants have been really responsive, quick to provide materials, and like any process, since they are contract planners, they've never been in our cannabis department before, they're working through, you know, consistency, making sure that everything meshes with the way that we process applications so that there is consistency to the applicants. But they've been with us for about 2 months now, and so I think they're really getting the hang of when to notify applicants, their communication styles. So we've had really great responses from the public. I think they're very responsive, really quick to answer any applicant questions that come through, and then refer questions to the department when they don't have answers as well.
Okay, thank you. And I know that there are ongoing conversations with the state regarding a variety of issues. I was just wondering if you could give us an update on that. That's for Mr. Burks or Mr. Dunnacliffe's not with us today, but
Yes, I'd be happy to answer that. So I have been in touch with our partners at the DCC over a number of things. Mostly my involvement's been around the grant and implementation of that.
you're talking about the
LJ, sorry, yeah. The LJ grant. And the scope of work associated with that, because we'll have the item, you know, later at the special board meeting today that we're going to discuss that in more detail. So that's been my primary engagement there. And then I know that also there's been lots of discussions about our streamlined ordinance, and I don't have too many comments on that only because my exposure was limited, but I can say that the partnership has really benefited me personally in terms of really easy, clear, transparent communication, and we've been able to accomplish all of our goals in these really, really tight timelines with their assistance. So, I mean, I've had a really positive experience working with them, and I look forward to doing it, you know, far into the future now that we are on this track.
all right, Ms. Babini.
And I also just wanted to comment that, you know, we've had a really great data sharing with the state that, you know, has been cultivated really by our cartographer in-house that is really helping to merge. You know, we send a weekly report to the state, and now we're actually getting a verified report back from them on the status of applications, which has been really beneficial for our reviews as well. We didn't have that in the past, and so we would only have the information provided by applicants or, you know, the state lookup that doesn't really have location information, so we were having to rely on getting renewed licenses from applicants, where now we actually have that in-house and we don't have to request that from the applicants. And it's really expedited that, which I appreciate, especially for reprioritization.
All right, very good. So I've been hearing that there's good communication with the DCC, and that maybe we ought to communicate that we're very happy with how they're relating to the county and the MCD. I think that maybe we could get a letter from the board or the chair.
I believe they're watching right now.
Oh, okay. Very good. Well, we really appreciate the work that the state's putting into this too. Okay. With that said, let's see, should we go to public comment? All right. Okay, Mr. Ward.
Good morning, everyone. Just got back from a 3-week fishing trip, and I'm glad to be here, marginally. Thank you to John and Elora for the fine work they're doing, and for you folks for supporting that work, and County Council's amending the ordinance. I had a 4-leaf review. I'm going to tell the truth and be blunt, because that's what I do. 2 of the 3 items I got in my 4-leaf review, they already had. I resubmitted them. I had submitted them through the portal, and for some reason they didn't get to 4-leaf. I don't know why. So I just regurgitated and printed them and sent them on. Couldn't get through the SharePoint. It was a disaster. So I'm glad we're going to Excella. That's kind of the industry standard for all permit processing throughout Northern California and the state. The 3rd item was a seller's permit, which is being taken out of the ordinance today. So that's good, and they acknowledge that. Why are we still sending stuff to the DA if the ordinance is going to eliminate that requirement? We should just stop it. Stop doing that. How is referral made to air quality? I've dealt with the new air quality management structure recently on non-cannabis projects. I find them to be overly officious, overly subjective, and they take a long time. Maybe we can find a better way of screening to minimize the amount of stuff that's going to air quality. In my professional opinion, they're not interpreting the NESHAP rules for demolition for residential structures properly. I don't know what they're going to do with the air quality stuff for cannabis. So it's a concern to me. Regarding referrals to CDFW, I guess we're using the referral selection tool that's been developed by the department. Shouldn't the operation of law 30-day limit for review apply? And they get 30 days to look at it, or do they send an op-law letter out? I don't know. County Council, that's kind of your ball game. But they get 30 days to reply to a referral, or they send a letter and say, hey, we didn't get to it, sorry. Move forward. Thank you.
Okay, so that was a question I asked earlier about the 30-day notice, and so it's under review with County Council.
And Mr. Chair, just to clarify a little bit, there's a 30-day referral requirement in CEQA. This isn't a CEQA referral, so the question is, because this referral is created under our particular ordinance, is there a time limit that attaches, and or can the department create and impose a time limit for non-responsiveness? So it's a little bit more nuanced than that. We're still reviewing.
Okay.
Back against Scott Ward Road to Valley. They applied the 30-day review period to the LSA applications, and I'm not sure that was CEQA. Thank you.
And not to put a rosy spin on your comments, but I think that we did work through some of those issues. Absolutely. Right, so I appreciate. I'm not banging on the department. It's a sea change. Yes. Could you put that? Say that into the microphone, please.
Tell them what to say. I agree with Scott.
Good morning, supervisors, county staff, cannabis department. Michael Katz. I'd like to reiterate what Scott just said. Start with the positives, that this is a significant sea change that the community is experiencing, and we are sincerely appreciative of the efforts on the county's behalf, the staff, the state. Whether or not they're watching, we are sincerely grateful that these pathways that we're discussing here today and later on today are being adopted, and hopefully will be adopted. I can't imagine a world in which they wouldn't be. They benefit the entire county and the entire community. So hopefully we see that move forward today. The only couple of things I want to mention are related to the review process. as we are moving forward, and hopefully these transitions happen later today, when we're talking about people that have submitted their Appendix Gs, people that, beyond the folks who are renewing with the state in July and August, as we transition into this new paradigm, if we are still able to have resources that are not necessarily going to be doing all that environmental review right away because of the paradigm shift, that we could process all of the applicants that have already submitted their Appendix Gs and continue to do so, not necessarily related or waiting until their time to annually review their provisionals, but in the order that the department is able to once the emergency folks in July and August are complete. Many of those folks have submitted their Appendix Gs, or folks are very close to submitting their Appendix Gs, and so it would be great if that processing could continue while we're making this transition. Beyond that, we really appreciate the enhanced conversations. We're grateful for the LJAGP grant development that will be coming later before the board. We appreciate the conversation about trying to get those true-ups attached to direct grant funding if that's possible. I think that would support a lot of people in these challenging financial times. And I want to thank MCD for their efficiency study, and just to point out that the time that's projected now to review these applications is between 16 and 80 hours, which puts the high end of our new estimate at half of the low end of the previous estimate, which just points to the need to continue to revise and review any policies, procedures, and requirements that had been identified or implemented by the former director. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And in regards to that comment with the Appendix G, and Ms. Babini,
Yes,
could you tell us what the plan is with the department?
Sure. So this was brought up by Chantal Simone Pietri, I think in one of the previous GGC meetings. I think it was a special meeting, that there are about 42 current Appendix Gs that we have in-house, and we really are kind of on this two-track pathway for review while we move through the streamlining and we have the EIR coming forward. My preference would be to still process those Appendix Gs once we have that other pathway in place. I am still moving forward as board direction to process July, then August, and September while we work through that. I think that we can process those Appendix Gs in-house without any complications, because those have had primarily those are renewals, right? Those people have already had sensitive species most likely, as well as air quality, and I think we can process those on kind of that two-track, not having to really review based on their expiration once we have that other process in place with the EIR. And so I don't want to pivot from where we're at right now, because there's always the potential for things not to go that way. And so I want to really stick on our track right now of reviewing based on state license expiration. But I really want to revisit that because we do have 42 Appendix Gs in-house to review.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Good morning, Hannah Nelson, and I just, of course, want to start out with all of the positive. I just feel at every single level, at every single part where everything is coming together, there has been more progress, more communication, more transparency, more problem solving, more taking into account suggestions. There's still hiccups. There's still differences of viewing things and different considerations. And, when I used to be a trial lawyer, I used to say, all I want is a fair judge who will listen and consider. And I feel that my experience at every single level is a beautiful, remarkable thing. And I so much appreciate the hard work that it took at the policymakers level and the staff level at every step of the way. In terms of the contract with Four Leaf, I want to reiterate what Ms. Bisbini said in terms of the responsiveness and the experience that I've had individually with different planners. Again, there have been hiccups, as Scott mentioned. I had a bunch of hiccups, but the responsiveness and the ability to work through them quickly has made all the difference in the world. It'll be a wonderful thing when things are so smooth that there aren't those kind of hiccups, because it does take time and effort for all kinds of people involved. But it's a miracle to go at this warp speed into such a different universe. So I just really appreciate that, and I tremendously appreciate the deep engagement and the transparency. It's really phenomenal, and I think it's a shining star for the rest of the county. As the county is looking at other issues of information sharing and transparency, I just feel like if we could go from such a disastrous and, kind of icky feeling to such a good feeling. Again, not to minimize the work we have ahead and that there may be differences of opinion, whatever, but it's so deeply appreciated, and all the hard work of everybody. And I really wanted to buy people presents, but I didn't want it to be seen like I was trying to bribe anybody. So virtual presents. A few little issues. In terms of the CEQA issue, and I so appreciate the strategizing ahead, I think the key critical thing for a certain segment of even July and August people who were just unfortunate enough to be caught in these weird grant positions. The LEAP went away, the LJGAP got on hold. And I know that there's a topic this afternoon, and it appears that there will be a mechanism for site-specific CEQA to be handled potentially under a contract if that's approved. But the timing of people finding out whether they have a different option in order to be okay to renew their state license is so much right now. People are so afraid. Some people, just to relay some experiences, some people are literally, they're so terrified that they, on the one hand, don't trust because of what's happened in the past, and on the other hand, they can't risk their whole life savings that they have gone into hock for up until now, so they're going out and borrowing more money. So that means that they're going to have difficulty paying their true-ups, whatever, and they have to make those commitments now in order. Other people are going, I just can't do it. So the message is the earliest possible juncture that a clear message to applicants can be made that their solution for the CEQA can continue with Appendix G but does not have to, would be incredibly important to receive as soon as possible. And anything that could be done to help with that messaging would be really ideal. With respect to processing other Appendix Gs, I really support that as soon as it's possible, but not until until there's kind of the alternative way that people don't have to do Appendix Gs. And I think that it's important to keep the rolling prioritization in accordance with state license expirations until that shift is absolutely clear, even if it's not fully transitioned, but there is a legal mechanism for people. Do really want to pursue the issue of administrative permits and how that's all playing out, and it's a little bit concerning to me, as well as some of the referral stuff, and making sure that there are the resources if it's air quality or whatever other agency needs additional extra help, or as Scott suggested, I think that the ordinance even allows for a development of like a screening, as long as it's consistent with air quality's policy, but whatever, something to help with those screenings and the timing of it and the referrals would be excellent. The LEAP funds, I totally support the exploration. I really appreciate any effort that would be made. I think it's an excellent way for people to remain in compliance and for the county to receive tax money. And I think that there's probably different categories of people. Those that are not yet in Cobblestone don't really require a modification. And I think an easy kind of universe to look at is everybody who just submitted an application before the deadline, whether their budget was approved or not, whether they're in Cobblestone or not, and that's one known universe, and perhaps that list could be given to the tax collector and said, if somebody comes in before the deadline with a waiver form, even though we can't process the waiver form now, and they're on this list, don't kick in interest and penalties. And I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know about whether that's an automatic thing in their system that they would have to manually do. And maybe it's easier and less stressful for the tax collector staff that it automatically happens, but then later it's waived or whatever it is. But I think that that's a way to contain the universe. And real quickly, tree removal stuff. And I really appreciate the conversations that I've had with the department as well as with county counsel's office. And I did email staff and the supervisors about a couple of issues in the affidavit regarding including irrigation lines. We went through this whole process to define cultivation site for purposes of looking at tree removal, and I understood that the direction regarding the affidavit was to really stick to the issues and the questions that are relevant. So that's certainly an issue. I know that county council is not prepared to have analyzed it fully and deal with it today, but I do hope that that stays on our radar and is resolved sometime soon. And if the policymakers have an opinion about it, that they express it so that they can direct staff in their further research. The other issue is just kind of a logistical issue, again, that I raised with county council that could really potentially benefit from an additional checkbox. And I deeply appreciate the add-on of the guidance regarding not personal knowledge, but I think just mechanically the form needs to be looked at again. And again, I raised that with county council. And then with respect to the policy, which again, I deeply appreciate all this work. It's an enormous amount of work that's going on. I think I got sick, so I didn't have an opportunity to continue our conversation, Mr. Burks, and I think that I will do that. There are some issues that I'd love to talk through, but I don't feel that it rises to the level yet to bring out to the government committee, and hopefully we can all figure out a way that there's comfortable language that serves the purposes that the county needs to have in place, as well as addresses any concerns that I have. And we'll leave it at that. I just didn't want anybody to be surprised if at some point the staff requests the government committee to look at that again. I just didn't want you to be surprised thinking, oh, we've already dealt with this. So thank you very much.
Okay, just one question.
Yeah.
Is you made a comment about the administrative permits.
Yes.
And what is the issue with administrative permits?
Well, I think that early on when I had contact with DCC in my own individual clients' cases to transition to annual before all of this solution with the county occurred, that prompted the state to seek out a list of administrative permits so that they could then potentially start working on transitioning other people. In their discovery, in my future conversations with that head scientist, it was discovered that the list might not have been totally accurate, and that some were not, as we've discussed before, full APs, so that was something that needed to be distinguished. And that also, and I know this from my own practice, that there's a whole bunch of people who applied for administrative permits that were never processed. So there are some that were processed, great, that's easy. There's a lot that have not been processed, and they were submitted in 2017. So it's a matter of going, okay, where are those? And then also for those people who didn't apply, either because at the time they didn't need to because of how they were doing their operations or whatever.
So the administrative permits were issued through planning and building?
Yeah.
Okay, is there any information that the department has, or do we need to bring in the head of planning and building for those kind of answers?
I can answer some of them. If there's further comment needed, I believe we could reach out to planning and building for comment if they're available. We have reached out to planning and building and are in discussion with that, with the planners assigned to work on the administrative permits. As Hannah stated, not all administrative permits do an environmental review of the whole project. Some of those are just dwelling unit exemptions, setback reductions, where they don't look at the cannabis operation as a holistic view for environmental impact. So those APs, to my knowledge, have all been provided. All of the approved ones have been provided to the DCC, and they're in the process of reviewing which ones can move forward for annual licensure. I don't have the numbers on how many of those they've reviewed. We would have to get comment from them to see how many of those have been reviewed. We also are in the process of any outstanding administrative permits. We're working really expediently with planning and building to get those reviewed as quickly as possible as well.
All right, thank you.
Is there a way, and again, I'm happy to, I did send an email to Director Krog, but haven't heard back. That was a couple of weeks ago. And I'm just wondering if there's a way, a person, a contact person at planning and building who, you know, I can talk to about some of the known applications that seem to have just dropped off or whatever, so that the person can resubmit them or whatever, or find out where they are in the process with respect to the, because they didn't even receive AP numbers because they were just turned in applications. So it's not like you could call building and planning and say, here's an AP number, please tell us the status. It's more vague than that, so it's not calling the PBS line. The other, actually, this raises one other question really quickly, and that is both with the Appendix Gs and with the APs, it seems like building and planning is going to be involved in the APs and the reviewer. With the Appendix G reviews, is that being handled by the same planner that's processing the underlying cultivation application, or is that like a little squad of Appendix G people?
So we've had this discussion as well. I think it really just depends. Ideally, I would have the planner assigned who did the review do the Appendix G, but that's not always possible. We have turnover with internal staff and contract planning, but ideally that's how I would have the review done because they're the most familiar with the project. But I can't always guarantee that because their workload could not, may not be available for them to do that, but I distribute those as much as possible when they come up to the planner who reviewed the application.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Good morning, Corinne Powell. I'm a local cultivator. And you may, I don't think you covered this in the few minutes that I missed this morning, so bear with me if you did and tell me to go to the tape. But for my personal benefit, and I think many people who may be listening too, who are applicants, we were familiar with the former director's explanation and definitions of terms, and I think maybe some of those may have changed. And I just hope maybe you can give us a little current definition information. For example, on page 6 of 9 of your report, terms in review, terms in the queue, terms processed and then in the queue. I've received communications at different stages of the current group leading the charge on all these improvements. And another term we had received and we had assigned. And could you just summarize the steps in these various categories and groupings of applicants? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Burks.
If I may respond through the chair to that question. So yes, I'd be happy to do that. So for me, I'm the administrative staff and I had prepared this. So what we mean is process to completion means that it's all the way through funding. so that those funds have been distributed. In the queue means either application received or we need to collect more materials to then be able to review it. In review is a bit broad only because, you know, we had to stop the review due to staffing, but we are resuming those reviews now. So that's in some sort of process beyond complete materials received. So we have everything that we need to do, so that would be the department. That's their responsibility, or our responsibility, I'm sorry, in the review to move those forward. So I hope that is that enough of an explanation, or does there need to be more to that? Oh, it's same. So that's kind of universally how the department has been applying, and you'll see that come up more frequently with any of the administrative functions. So that's how I'm trying to capture them, so that we're clear on if it's in review, that means that we're consciously working on it. In queue just means that it has not been picked up by us in our workload yet. And then, you know, complete would be, you know, we're not touching it anymore. We've done everything that we feel that we need to do as the department.
So there's 3 stages.
I mean, for me, that's the easiest way to break it down. What's in front of our faces? What's on our computers? You know, what are we doing in this moment? And then on one side is, okay, we're done, and on the other is we need to get started. So I that's just how my brain works, and I hope that will, you know, translate in our future reports.
Corinne, could you come up to the microphone?
Corinne Powell again. Is assigned in the review category?
In terms of the actual, like, cultivation applications?
Right.
I'll defer to the chief on that.
So once a project has been assigned, yes, it is with a planner for review. So we have all of our Julys assigned and are under review and working through the process, as well as, I would say, 99% of our Augusts as well have been assigned and are under review already.
All right.
Good morning, everybody. I wasn't going to speak, but then the tone of gratitude and all the good feelings, I was like, okay, I'll make some comments. So here we go.
Okay.
I'll start with gratitude. Thank you all so much for all the hard work you've been doing. It's very noticeable across the board, like even preparing on my own personal calendar for that these meetings were coming up. The last 6 months of them have been, since they started, kind of like a tone of a little bit of dread about, okay, here we go again. We're going to have to really rally up there and make the right comments and sort of claw to hold a position and claw to be heard, and then continue to claw to see that there's follow through upon what we commented and what was expressed as being heard. So the overall change feels much more collaborative and effective for local government. So thank you everybody for your time and attention and staying the course with us as well. Sorry if we got a little harsh and negative at times. It felt despair, like I've said in other comments that I think I opened up saying I feel despair a few months ago. So it's really nice to open up with, wow, I feel really grateful. And I wasn't going to comment because I was feeling like, wow, I don't really have to today. But and then I heard Hannah comment, and that prompted a bunch of things in my brain. So I'm just going to rattle them off. Some of them are constructive, just feedback, and some are requests for information, and they're not in any order. And I'll try and go pretty quick, but I'll probably be a little bit more than the remaining time that I have left, since my gratitude took half, which is really nice. Okay. For folks that are in the July and August pool of people, as far as CEQA submissions, I would really appreciate, and I've asked for this many times, a sample of 2 or 3 different samples of successful submissions with site-specific information redacted. And I think that that can be done in a way that there still will be constructive information given out for consultants that are preparing them to be able to know that they should continue down the path. Since we don't have time to wait in order to receive back reviews on the ones that were submitted over the last couple of years, I'm now quickly rolling forward about a dozen that I'll be turning in over the next 6 weeks. And I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, in a way that the template that I'm using, which is based upon the very minimal information we received from the state and from the MCD in the past, is still the guiding standard we should use. And I've got the basics. We can paginate. We'll do a table of contents. Like I do high quality materials. I'm not concerned about that. But it would just be nice to know this is going to work, or here's some things you can look for, and then it will save everybody. Total cost and time will be reduced if we get back better examples to guide us. And I would ask specifically for those to be one that's specific to a pure outdoor cultivation, whether 5K or 10K, one for pure mixed light, one with a variation of their power source, so in particular if there's a generator issue, if there was referral for SSHR, and then a combination if there's a multi-license on a property. So if you have some examples of those you can return, I know this is a tricky request, but we don't have any guiding information other than the templates, which are very kind of useless. They let you start with like paragraph structure and headings, but they really don't let you walk through and know the nitty-gritty of what to put where. I still think I'm doing a good job, but it would be helpful to have some more feedback come back. I'm going to keep going because you don't have an answer. Okay, cool. I totally support, thanks for speaking towards this, Ms. Babini, that those CEQA documents that have already been submitted prior to this paradigm shift, if those would be reviewed and comments returned or certified, feedback back that they're in process, even if when you know that you're getting to them, if you would send an email to the applicant and the consultant saying, hey, we're starting to review this, it would soothe much anxiety and also let people know how to budget business-wise as far as their costs. If they need to redo or hire somebody else or know that they weren't lost, even because we had many of the early ones that I submitted that were then not able to be found, or if it's a two-part document, the PD plus checklist and the supporting materials were separate, one of those two documents was unable to be found. So making sure that what we think was submitted and that you have it, that you actually have it. My feedback on working through two projects right now that are with a four-leaf planner is that the communication has been very timely, specific, helpful, and transparent. So feedback for the board to hear that as well, that that's been going really well. And so relieving to get a response back from somebody so quickly who's knowledgeable and can also say, I don't know about that, I'm going to find out, and then does find out, and then does get back to us. So that's been going really well. Thank you. On the referrals, whether it's to the air quality department or out to CDFW, again, ask that at the time of determination of whether referral is going to be triggered or not triggered, in particular for the SSHR, if notification would be given to the operator/agent immediately at the time of referral, so we know when that 30-day timeline starts. Then we can also know some of those may be right now. And I've been going directly to Jessica Ryan, CDFW's SSHR processor, and asking what's on her list and how frequently she gets a list from the county. But I feel like I'm kind of circumventing a process. It'd be more appropriate for me to ask the department directly or for the department to let the operator know at the time of when they're being referred. In air quality, similarly, and better clarification of under what's the standard for referral for air quality? Is it only if there's a generator? Or under what other circumstances? Is it related to road improvements and dust? And that I don't think has been fleshed out in any materials. It may totally have been, and I just wasn't tuned in at that time because I was so on the SSHR path, but I'd appreciate knowing more about that. Currently, right now, for ones that are in the July and August queue, but that with July and August provisional expirations, but that have not confirmed as to their SSHR path, I'd like to ask the department, and maybe I'll hold hearing your response, I finish my comments, then I can sit back down, is can we turn in CEQA materials that are like 95% done? The only thing that's outstanding is, I have many drafted right now that say, it's like option A, SSHR referred out, and here's the project referral comments, and this is what they say, and those project referral comments specifics are also included in the environmental commitment sections of the CEQA document, or it's option B, not referred out, and here's like one of them I turned in with you, Elora. You wrote an email back saying not referred, no issues, and I was able to end note the text from an email as supporting material saying that the SSHR process was resolved. So the question to the department is, can we turn in some that are at 95%? Would that be helpful or obstructive or like slow it down? I don't want to do anything that slows it all down. And I'll hold hearing the answer if I can just keep running the floor. Yeah.
Just if there are really specific questions, and that should probably be dealt with outside of this venue and just directly with the department.
Sure.
So, okay.
I think I agree, and I think it's also helpful as other people are listening in that more people then hear the response, so there's less needing to broadcast.
Right, but this should be more about policy.
Okay, great. I'll swing back to policy-related things. Those are specific. I think that was my tone in the start, was like most of my questions are so nitty-gritty technical that I'll hold having comments, so thanks for letting me go down that a little bit. That was a draft Form 1, notice of referrals I spoke to. I'm in support of, on the concept for LEAP, and it is at the greatest ability for the applicant to pivot what their forecasted budget was going to be from the moment that you begin to reprocess. So if at that time, then they can be communicated with to say, we're actually picking yours up again. I would say it's highly likely that most people have a pivot that they want to do. Something shifted from what they thought from when they initially turned in or drafted their budget, whether they're already into cobblestone or not. The last, I have a question, is when will the equity eligibility applications begin to be processed again? A timeline, I know that they're going to come back up in the queue, but the question is when? And the last two are just policy comments in general. One is that there is a grant available through the California Resource Conservation District that cannabis operators are eligible for. It's really rare for a state agency to view cannabis as a fundable qualifying agriculture form, and that those grants are up to $20,000. I've spoken at length with the Cal RCD and local RCD, and I think that it would be great if the MCD would continue that conversation with local and state and put out more information about it. It's retroactive, up to $20K. It's fairly easy to qualify for it, and it's reimbursement of demonstrable costs. So I'll go over that, just putting it out there that there's more monies out there, and it'd be great if the department would assist in, as they are the department, not just the permit granting, but also opportunities and support for cultivators, as they are the mouthpiece for that too. And lastly is to encourage the MCD and the county to work more directly with the local RCD, the Mendocino County Resource Conservation District. Many RCDs in the state are starting to have a cannabis-specific department, cannabis-specific staff, like they have soils, forestry, sometimes they have a vineyard component, and our local region is debating how much to be involved in the cannabis realm. I do a lot of work with them, and working with the county government, I think, would help them to resource the funds to then create more support, and they could funnel a lot of the funding support mechanisms could be going through them, including sustainable ag certification programs and things that improve beyond just reducing impacts to sustainability and then regenerative for the cannabis industry locally, which is part of what our kind of like high standard has been.
And I know that the RCD has created that best practices pamphlet and what's it called, Green Sea? Or
they have the Grass Seed program, yeah. I'm taking
Seed.
them out to a test site for a cultivator on Tuesday of next week, actually, to do the first pilot for that. And they did create that best practices manual, and it's also in English and Spanish, which is really rare that we do have cultivators in the region that don't speak English, or don't speak English or read it. And so any materials the county can put out related to cultivation in Spanish would be really well appreciated. There's a lot of folks that are relying on a consultant like me to translate, which I can, but there's always a little something missed.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good, thank you.
Through the chair, if I may. Could you please state your name for the record?
So sorry. My first name is Chantal, and my last name is Simone Pietri with Mainspring Consulting here in Ukiah. Thanks.
Okay, Ms. Babini.
Thank you. Through the chair, Elora Babini, Mendocino County Cannabis Department. I do want to point out, and it is an available resource, we have a Spanish-speaking planner who works with our department who is available to anyone if translation is needed. So we do have somebody with us that is able to do translations. To answer some of Chantal's questions for the referral process, Fish and Wildlife, again, we're waiting on kind of a determination on the 30 days or not on that, since it is built into our ordinance and it's not part of the initial CEQA trustee agency. With air quality, any yes checkbox, or if the project is in a known asbestos area, requires the department to send that out for referral. So it's any yes checkbox on there. The air quality wants to review the checklist that we provide that the applicant has filled out, or if the project falls in a known asbestos area, which on the county's GIS website for the land constraints, you can turn on serpentine soils and look to see if your project is in any of those known asbestos areas to know if your project is going to go to air quality. I did want to respond to the CEQA question for the Appendix Gs. I think it's a very difficult question to answer because I think if we say, oh, you can turn in your CEQA document prior to it being fully complete, we're going to get a lot of different responses to that I think will put an enormous workload on the planning staff to determine where that actually is. And so I think it's an individual basis, and I'm happy to, speak with clients or with applicants for agents who think they're almost completed or where they're at in the referral process. Additionally, we have worked on language and messaging to applicants that is an email template that we provided to our staff and to the contract planners with recommendations from Ms. Nelson, where we spoke about notifying people whether their referral was sent out to Fish and Wildlife or if it was completed in-house. And so we've been implementing that, again, working through that process and implementing new review processes with the contract planners and our staff. It's going to take some time for that to be 100%, but we are working through that so that people know exactly when their project was sent out for referral, as well as including the applicant and agent on any air quality, because it is a referral sent through email, including them on that referral so they know when it was sent to them as well.
All right, thank you. Any further public comment? Online. Oh, Mr. Burks.
If I may make one comment about one of the things that was brought up, Office Services Supervisor Trish Tracy did assemble a list of all of the LEAP waivers associated with the TTC, did submit that to them, and is working with them currently. So I suspect that pathway is either already underway or is opening up so that we can have that conversation.
Oh, very good. All right.
First on the line is Monique Ramirez.
Good morning, Monique Ramirez, District 3. I just want to say thank you again for everybody's dedication and willingness to work together and be in collaboration and taking in all of the feedback from our previous public comments, not only individual speakers, but also the Mendocino Cannabis Alliance, and just really want to honor the Mendocino Cannabis Department and the breath of fresh air that we all feel. It feels so good to feel like we have hope again, that maybe we're going to make it. So thank you, thank you. I did want to just draw attention to one comment that I heard from a previous public speaker. I believe it was Scott, who was talking about, Scott Ward, who was speaking about the air quality document. And I just want to provide a little bit of information around it because I went through that process and I'm almost done with my Appendix G. And one thing that I noticed when I filled out that form, and I don't think that it's been changed, I did look just now on the website and I don't see the form available to the public, and maybe that got taken down for a reason, but one of the questions in the air quality document, I think that throws people off a little bit and maybe we could get modified, is the question about outdoor burning. It's absolutely not allowed for cannabis cultivators at the state level. And it actually does say that in the document that burning cannabis vegetation is not permitted. But it's kind of a tricky question because it's asking you if you do outdoor burning, and some people have lots of land and may do it for just personal land cleanup. And so they may feel like they need to check that box, but then it triggers like additional review that may be unnecessary. And so I was in that predicament and I contacted the air quality person. And at the time there was one person reviewing these forms. And I think that was also why it was taking a long time for people to get through that process. And they also realized that was kind of a tricky question. And it seems like when these forms are being looked at through the lens of cannabis commercial activity, we should really stick to the questions that pertain to it. And if it's outside of that, like for residential use or something like that, I think that it should either be in a separate question or just not putting it together, because it makes the applicant feel like, oh gosh, what do? I want to be transparent, but I also don't want them to think that this is for cannabis burning when clearly it's not. And so I think that if maybe that question could be re-examined and maybe modified in the questionnaire moving forward, I think that could help possibly streamline that process. So I just wanted to provide that feedback to the department to maybe look at. So thank you again for today's meeting. I appreciate everybody there so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other online comments?
That concludes the online comments.
All right, very good. Then back to the board, or to the committee. So any further comments?
I don't have any further comments at this time. I think that the department has received the community's feedback and they will do the best that they can to implement their suggestions. So thank you all for coming today.
All right, so with that, I guess, do we need to have a motion to accept the report?
I move we accept the report.
I'll second that.
Supervisor Mulhern?
Yes.
Chair Hashak?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, so moving on to item 3A, public expression for any comments that are not on the agenda.
This is very quick. I just received an email from Director Krug, so that solves that issue. Thank you.
That was for comments not on the agenda. But anyway, okay. Any comments not on the agenda?
How you doing? My name is Rick Foltz. One thing I haven't heard today and what I would like to talk about is what is going to be the pathway for the other 725 applicants who are not into the system. We've heard a lot of talk about the 115 who are going through the process, and we talk about the annual licenses that are coming due in July, August, September, but we have no comment on what is the pathway forward for the rest of the applicants who have been in the system for many years now. And also on top of that, how is the board and the county going to be treating these applicants as far as taxes, true-up taxes, and which recently I received a form from the assessor about property business taxes. So as we push forward and somebody like me looking at it going, well, I'm not approved to have a business yet, why am I doing a property business tax statement to be charged a business tax on a business that I can't perform yet? So just those things moving forward and how we would address those. That's all.
All right. Mr. Burks, do you have a comment on that or about the big picture? Or Ms. Babini?
Elora Babini at Mendocino County Cannabis Department. So as I previously stated, we do have a 2-track right now with hopefully the approval of our environmental impact report, which will be the totality of our applicants for site-specific CEQA that are in the program, not just those that hold a provisional license or annual license currently. Annual obviously already has their site-specific CEQA. And then we are going to, discuss and reassess how we are reviewing those applications once that comes forward, because right now we kind of have to be on this 2-track of how we're viewing our reviews with direction of the board to prioritize folks based on their state license expiration is how the department has been moving forward.
And then this issue about the business license tax. And my understanding is that people like Rick might be paying a business license tax but not being able to cultivate. That's the issue, right? Yeah. And so I guess that's something outside of the department, right? That we'll just have to look into. Okay, we'll look into that. Very good. Okay, any other public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay, moving on then. Let's see, we have item 3B, approval of minutes of April 14th, 2023 special meeting.
I move we approve the minutes from 4/14.
Okay, second. Any public comment? Okay, call for the vote.
Chair Hashak?
Yes.
Supervisor Mulhern?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, agenda item number 3C, approval of minutes of April 17th, 2023 regular meeting. Okay.
Move approval of the 4/17 minutes.
Okay, second. Any public comment? Okay, call the question.
Supervisor Mulhern?
Yes.
Chair Hashak?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 3D, I guess. Any other announcements? I think, well, we have an afternoon full of cannabis issues, and so we probably will see a lot of people back at 1:30 when that starts for the Board of Supervisors. And with that, at 10:07, we will adjourn the meeting. Okay.